Run the South is the theme in the NFC South. Welcome to the 95 North Sports Machine. We have a quick special for you guys, man. Trade deadline special. But yeah, Smitty, run the South. 6-3, the Atlanta Falcons, man. It feels good to be it to be running the table, man. NFC Conference 6-1, NFC South. You already know what's going on, man. But shout out to everybody that's in the chat in the present time. We definitely appreciate you guys taking out the time out of your lunch hour to come and kick it with us. You know, the Falcons had a fantastic game defensively. Woof, when's the last time we can say that, especially within this year, that the Falcons played some competent defense yesterday. But with the trade line looming, shouldn't, stop the Falcons from acquiring talent in order to bluster this defense. So, Smitty, man, how you doing, man? What's your thought real quick on yesterday's 27-21 victory over the Dallas Cowboys right quick, man?
Yeah, man. Shout out to the chat yesterday, man. They carried me yesterday. I was a little bit out of it, I'm gonna be honest. But yesterday's game, man, it was a lot lackluster, if you ask me, on the Cowboys side. And we took advantage and did what we needed to do. We didn't play down to their level, and I was surprised because the defense came to play yesterday. 3 sacks yesterday, and it was something to build off of. And as I told y'all in the preview show, let D'Angelo Malone get on the field and see what he can do. Yeah, he didn't have stupid stats, but he made an impact. Yesterday, the interior of the line, they collapsed the pocket, which I told you they had to do. We did see Greg Jarrett go out with an injury late in the game. But, as a whole unit, man, they played very, very well, and they were consistent on offense. They ran the ball, passed the ball. Kirk Cousins nearly 80% completion percentage, 3 touchdown games. So, I mean, you couldn't ask for nothing more. The only thing that I would like to see down the road, man, is just clamp down in the fourth quarter like you usually do, adjust, and keep winning these football games.
Some great points there by you, Smitty. And I also want to just bring to light some of the stuff that happened interiorly. Unfortunate that Rook, is out for the next 4 games. Shout out Kerry in the chat. He's out for the next 4 games. But what this Falcons defense has been all year, or this team has been all year, is next man up. And boy, did Damone Harris show up yesterday? Now, typically we would see Damone Harris lined up exclusively as a defensive end or the edge within Jimmy Lake's defense, but he was asked to kick inside and played in the interior. And that's what I think right there. That's what sparked this defense to really start collapsing this pocket and really get to Dak Prescott early. On one play specifically, he was lined up right next to Grady, kind of the same way that they used to feature their rush package when Rook was around, lined up next to Grady, and allowed Grady to have his best game as a Falcon this year. He had a sack and a half week 1 versus Pittsburgh, but he's been relatively quiet ever since. And yesterday he had a showing up and showing out party. So it's good to see the vet come out and play the way that he did. So I wanted to highlight Damone Harris's play yesterday because I think the Falcons and Jimmy Lake has something there to work with, man. And if we can keep up that interior collapse in the pocket as it was done for most of the day yesterday, it's a good thing to have, or a good problem to have. Also have to, take note is the emergence of Arnold Ebiketie on this defensive line, man. He was in the backfield. He was a menace. He was giving Tyler Guyton, the rookie left tackle of Dallas, some fits yesterday, and it showed. But again, like we mentioned, all these things, they sound great, but it should not stop the Falcons from being buyers at tomorrow's deadline. And one name in specific, we're going to highlight this, man. Azeez Ojulari, the young phenom pass rusher of the New York Giants, still 24 years of age, is on his last deal of his contract. That's the presumed target for these Atlanta Falcons. We're starting to hear some of the chips fall into place. Darius Smith linked exclusively to the Detroit Lions, and can you blame them losing Aiden Hutchinson? But the Falcons and Azeez Ojulari, that's going to come down to the final minutes. What's your thought on the Falcons possibly acquiring the young, talented pass rusher out of New York?
Berta, as you know, man, I spoke on Azeez about a month ago, man, and I knew he should have been a target from the jump because as I look at his stats, man, and I'm finna show them to y'all right quick. Azeez should have been he should have been a target from the jump, man. You look at his numbers in 44 career games. This is his 4th season. I think he was a 2nd-round pick, so this is the final year of his deal. And I think his contract number is probably a little bit under $1 million right now. and they only have a dead cap space of 1.3, so they could trade him, get draft compensation, because y'all got to remember in New York they have Thibodeau, they have Brian Burns, they have Dexter Lawrence, so they have adequate help on that defensive line, and he's just a rotation guy, and he had 6 sacks. So he started 4 games as well. That was because Thibodeau was out with an injury, but he's back to the bench. And if y'all look at the numbers right there on the screen, man, he's absolutely a 3-4 fit. He's not a big guy. He's about 6'2", about 240, 245. And I think it's a great fit all around, man. And we need that help on the outside. We talked about Arnold Ebiketie showing up yesterday. He's been playing very well the last couple of weeks. You look at the defensive line interior, Damone Harris. Yes, he's played well, but how long can you expect that to keep going on? Contavious Street is a solid backup, but
Mm-hmm.
this pass rush needs another person in this rotation. D'Angelo Malone, like we said, got playing time. So
Mm-hmm.
they're working it out. They're working out the kinks, but I think he's got to be on their radar. And if y'all go back to my page, y'all will see where I did a mock up of how he fits the Falcons. But Azeez Ojulari is a perfect fit for the Falcons. And honestly, man, I think he should have been there picked from the jump, man. So that's what I have about Azeez Ojulari. But again, man, y'all please go check that out. Miss Carey says, will Troy be back for the game against the Saints in the Toilet Bowl? I really hope so. His speed, and I feel like I would like to see Caden shine even more once he's back. And Carey, I'm glad you brought up that point because Virgo said this last year. I would love to see Caden Ellis more on the outside. I would like to see him more in the pass rushing role. He had 6 pressures yesterday, so he was getting out to Dak Prescott the entire game, and we could see and expect more of that once J.D. Bertrand comes back, once Troy Anderson comes back. So we could see more of this going forward. So, Kerry, that is a great point.
Mm-hmm. And that it also proves as a point. So shout out Kerry for that one too. Yes, Caden was shining yesterday.
Yo,
He was the guy. What's going on, Chris? He was the guy
yo.
on the defensive line yesterday, man. You know, we shouted out Damone Harris, we shouted out Arnold Ebiketie, but definitely flowers have to be given to the play of Caden Ellis, who was a wrecking
Oh
ball in his
yeah.
own sense. Came up big on that third down play on that end around to CD Lamb, was there to recognize the play and make the stop. So, you know, his play alone yesterday also recorded a sack. But I'm going to tie this into the Azeez Ojulari situation, right? You get another physical or you get another, you know, tweener, an athletically gifted individual like Azeez Ojulari. It's going to give Jimmy Lake really, another added tool to get creative with how he deploys his blitzes. We could have 2 very effective blitzers in, through the gap, so through the outside, putting Caden on the outside, featuring Azeez Ojulari. Not to mention, James Smith Williams, has a thing or two to say about that because he can rush the passer. And of course, we have Matthew Judon. So more added
Mhm.
elements to this defense will only help Jimmy Lake, just prepare for matchups in the future, man. But again, definitely have to keep our eyes on the trade market for tomorrow. Another name that's being linked to the Atlanta Falcons is none other than Calais Campbell. Calais Campbell, as we all know,
Yeah.
our leader in sacks last year, currently playing for the Miami Dolphins and has 3 sacks. And he's still playing at the same level that he was last year for the Falcons. So what if tomorrow or even tonight, man, we wake up to some wonderful news that the Falcons reacquired Calais and then turn around and acquire Azeez
Oh,
Ojulari. What a boost for
Larry.
this
Yeah.
defense overall, man. But Chris, since you're just tapping in,
Yeah.
man, what say you, man? What are your thoughts right quick on this?
Hey man, I feel like we still need, some pass rush help. I think,
Mm-hmm.
yesterday was a good showing from the Atlanta Falcons getting that pressure. We seen Grady, AK, I seen record a second. Of course, Caden Ellis was like a man possessed out there just ultimately all day yesterday, but he was even able to record a sack as well. You see good strides. It's just you want to add to it and, continue to be a complete team. Bringing in a guy like Ojulari who has 26 tackles and 6 sacks in his own right now, so would definitely bolster this Falcons defensive line. It also would make it easier on the secondary because if you're getting quarterback pressures and getting them off their spot and they're just throwing the ball out there, you got ball hawks out there and you got AJ Terrell out there who's regained some confidence. You could definitely tell, interceptions will do that. And you just got a secondary out there that can take the ball away. So it would definitely bolster the defense. I would go for Calais. If you want to bring him back, I mean, it wouldn't cost really hardly anything to really acquire both players as far as salary cap wise. So if you can make that move, hey, bring him back in, because I believe it's kind of like was underestimated Calais' impact last year, and you kind of see it this year. You really do. So yeah, man, that's just quick thoughts.
Hey, before we go on right quick, man, I got to give a shout out to Christian Lewis,
That's
Lady
Christy.
Birds, Lady
Yep.
Birds of AFN, man. Please check out. Please go to the Lady Birds on AFN and check out, man. Those ladies know their football. Miss
Yeah.
Carrie, one of our biggest supporters, man. She said, "What about Harold Landry?" I
Yeah.
had Harold Landry in mind, another former Titan, veteran in his league. Mister, he's had double-digit sacks in 2 of his 8 seasons already. So I can see Harold Landry as a fit. But financially, I think Aziz Ojulari makes more sense because he's on the last year of a rookie deal, and you could probably sign him back for much cheaper than Harold Landry that you could get Harold Landry for. But I would Chris Carey. I would love Harold Landry, but as I look at the money and look at what they're trying to do going forward, I think Aziz would be a better fit long term financial wise. But as
Right.
far as production, I think Harold Landry does have more production, but also Aziz is much younger than Harold Landry. So as far as that
Indeed.
aspect, I would say no.
Yeah.
But go ahead, Berto.
Yeah, so I look at it, look at it like this, and sure, Harold Landry, great name to bring up by Miss Carey there. Yeah, and like you mentioned,
Right.
Smitty, about the financials and how that wouldn't make sense, right? But Harold Landry really is not a guy that will beat you 1v1. You know what I mean? I think he's there for a lot of the cleanups or cleanup sacks, and so many people have shouted that out on Twitter, and I've seen it for myself as well. I think the best fit is, like you mentioned, Aziz Ojulari, because of the age and the financials tied into that young man. With Harold Landry, you're looking at 2 years, 34 million left on that
Right.
contract. The Falcons sit a
Mhm.
little bit, a little bit under 8 million with 7.9 still under the cap. So
Right.
it would force Terry to get real creative on how he can restructure certain contracts that we have going on. And if folks remember, we've already tapped in to some of the bigger contracts, Chris Lindstrom, Jesse Bates. So I don't know
Yeah.
if there's enough wiggle room to go ahead and tap into those numbers any further. But Aziz Ojulari does make the most sense. But the compensation is
Compensation.
what I would love to know, to see, love to know what the Falcons are willing to give up. This is an ascending pass rusher, and ascending pass rushers really aren't made available in today's day and age. So it's rare that a guy like this does hit the market. Smitty, you brought up a fantastic point where the Giants really are just blessed with pass rushers. Brian Burns, Dexter
They are.
Lawrence, Kayvon Thibodeau, making this young man, disposable. And, and you say disposable, not in a bad term. It's just because you don't want to pay high dollars to a rotation guys when you have down the line, you have Kayvon Thibodeau and you're already playing Brian Burns and
Right.
Dexter Lawrence. So
Right.
what does the compensation look like to acquire a guy like Aziz Ojulari? Let's remind the folks.
That's a
We got
great question. That is a
let's
great
remind
question.
this. We have a first, a second.
Mhm.
We don't have a third because of Judon. I believe we have a fourth and a sixth next year, and that's it. So, what are the Falcons willing to give up? What are the Giants willing to receive also in compensation? What are they asking for? So there's a lot of little questions in between. So what are your thoughts on that?
Uh, actually, man, I think they can get by with a third in 2026. Because I think that's going to be the least asking price for Ojulari because of what he's done his first 4 years in the league with those 26 sacks. So he's been productive as a backup. And even though he's a rotational guy, that still has value because of his numbers. And
Yep.
Miss Carey, she gave you his financial that financial aspect of his contract, 791,000 this year, which is
That's it.
pennies on the dollar. But if you sign him next year, let's just say he's making 791 this year. If you sign him probably to a 3-year, possibly, I would say I'm gonna put it right in the Caden Ellis range. 3 years, $21 million. You have a young pass rusher for the next 3 to 4 years on that type of contract. So I would love to see that. But a third round pick in 2026 is what I'm gonna go with. But if we had to go next year, they would probably have to give up that 4th-round pick, which I think they probably don't want
Right.
to do because they're already going to probably have to use that 2nd-round pick to trade back to pick up some more picks in next year's draft. So, it's
Great
kind
point.
of a slippery slope. It's just, are they willing to take that move? And Miss Carey said he's only 24 years old, and
Yep.
that's a blessing.
That's it. Only 24, 1-year rental. He doesn't have to be just a 1-year rental. You can sign him long term. Again, the compensation, I think I agree with you, Smitty. They probably would want a 3rd rounder. And if we can give that, I know we're in a competition with other teams, but if we can get that, that would be actually a great steal because you can push things around. And you still can be able to make moves in the draft as well. So ultimately, man, I think you should go after him. He's a young pass rusher anyway.
I'm just reading some of the comments, Chris. I didn't mean my last.
Oh,
shoot,
man, I want to read the one that you just read. I like to laugh. Hell.
Yeah. Yeah, man. So definitely, and here's another thing too. Oh man, I'm gonna bring up a couple things, and I want you guys' thoughts on this right quick. Right, I said this on Twitter the other day. If indeed Terry is able to pull off this trade, it shouldn't surprise anybody. Terry has been committed to put the best Falcon product out on the field, and he has shown that. Can't nobody disagree with that, right? So acquiring a guy like Azeez Ojulari, here's Terry's vision for the future. What do we have that a lot of folks are missing out on and forgetting? We have Braylon Trice waiting in the wings. And then to pair him next year with Azeez Ojulari or what may have you, now you got a tandem going into next year that you can work off of and make smaller moves in case something goes wrong with Braylon Trice. So sure, he comes in heavily hyped. We haven't seen him, unfortunately. He was hurt in that first preseason game. But when was it the last time that we had 2 inspiring edge defenders? You got to go back to 2016, 2017 when it was the Tack and Vic Beasley show. Well, obviously that, faltered. But going into next year, that's what we're looking at, a tandem possibly like that. So I give all the shout out and credit to Terry if he can pull out some magic like this. And here's another one.
Definitely.
Here's another
one.
He
doesn't have that extension either. So this is definitely move to gain that extension as well.
Mm-hmm. Here's another one, right?
Right.
How much pressure is Terry and company facing? Chris, you brought up a great point. It's not extended beyond this year. But you got to think about the moves in the past that Terry Fontenot has tried to make with this ball club, trying to acquire Danielle Hunter, trying to acquire Montez Sweat, try to trade back into the first round to choose Lateu Latu after the Michael Penix pick. Is there pressure on Terry Fontenot and company to absolutely get a deal done for these Atlanta Falcons in the wee hours tonight?
Man, see, it's that word that you use, that absolutely, for me, because it's like, I feel like even if we don't make a move, as long as you keep winning and keep, making right moves with the salary cap, I believe Terry can at least maybe get something toward the end of the year. So I don't think it's an absolute move. I think he needs to, though, to better his chances to gain that extension. And like you were saying, Terry has tried to do this and tried to do that. Well, also it's just like somebody else saying that, hey, I'm trying to do better. I'm trying to do better by you, at the same time. But are they doing it all the way to the fullest? So making more moves, not saying that he hasn't. I'm just saying making more moves just better his chances of being here long term. And the Falcons are set up nice, 6-3. We already know tied with the Lions for the best conference record. And we just need to catapult ourselves into a different stratosphere. And to do that and, to bring in people possibly like Ojulari. And if he can make the Calais move, if you can make both those 2 moves, I think those are moves that can help set you up to be our general manager for next year and 2 years to come. Because you have a nice track record. You know what I'm saying? It's dicey for some people. I understand. Respectfully, I understand. But at the end of the day, he's done some wonderful things. And this right here would be able to kind of bolster him into that next stratosphere and us as a team.
I love it.
And I'm glad you brought a defensive tackle position. There are a couple of defensive tackles I saw on a couple of reports that I think could come in, help the Falcons right away. We talked about Calais Campbell, which I think is a great move because he can play inside and outside. And like you say, he had 6 sacks. Another guy, Dalvin Tomlinson of the Browns, Quentin Jefferson of the Browns. Devin Gotcho, who me and Berto talked about last year,
Mm-hmm.
he would be a nice
Gotcha.
pick. Falcon. John Jenkins, a guy that can eat up space. Zach Pickens, former South Carolina defensive tackle, went to the Bears.
Oh yeah. Mm-hmm.
Enjoyed the Giants. So there are defensive tackle options out there as well. And I think honestly, you have to go out and get another defensive tackle as well because you have to have guys that can eat up space. And they did that pretty good yesterday with Grady, Onyemata. You saw Damone Harris out there. Like you said, it gave them that spark. But a guy like Devin Gotcho, man, he doesn't have godly sack numbers. But when it comes to collapsing the pocket, clogging up running lanes, he's one of the top guys in the league at doing that. And if he can come in and make that type of impact, you probably could get him for probably a 6 or 7 round pick. Honestly, because it's a contract year for him. No, I'm sorry, he has one more year on his contract, and I think it's a nice little piece of change. But with new salary cap money coming in next year and possible cuts coming next year, you can fit it in the cap. So defensive tackle is another position, like Berto said a couple of weeks ago. It's something we definitely should think about looking at.
Yeah, and I think it would have. I'm sorry to say this, but it would have catapulted defensive end if I'm being correct. We saw the injury scare that we all suffered with Grady yesterday. Left the game in the fourth quarter because of an Achilles strain. Although the reports indicate that he's good, they just they held him out for precautionary reasons. So I'm happy to hear that. But yeah, I'll throw another name in the defensive tackle group, and this is a guy that Coach Raheem Morris and Jimmy Lake know all too well. Sebastian Day-Joseph, that played for the Rams. That's a guy that knows the scheme, playing for the Titans currently now. The Titans really don't look like they're going anywhere. So really, they could be sellers on certain pieces come tomorrow. So that's another name.
You one out the hat that time, Berto.
Yeah. So I mean, to really, and for the compensation for Sebastian Day-Joseph, I don't think it's anything in next year's draft. I'm looking at 2026, and maybe you can get him for a conditional 7th round pick because it's a veteran in the league. But sure, he would be an added body to this room that really needs to help the run defense. Dallas was able to squeak out some runs, right? And what I expected yesterday from the Falcons was to completely shut down the run. This is a team that only garnered only 74 yards a game or 77 yards a game, ranked dead last in the NFL, going up against a 21st ranked run defense of the Atlanta Falcons. I expected the Falcons to really make that sort of noise to help out and feature the pass rush a little bit more. So thinking ahead, looking at the remaining schedule, teams like Minnesota, who's on the schedule, Denver, who's on the schedule, teams that like to run the ball and stuff like that, acquiring a piece and having, the familiarity with the scheme already could also help down the line as well. And Sebastian Day-Joseph is a name that folks shouldn't be surprised if the Falcons elect to go defensive tackle.
Yeah. Kerry has a question here saying, do you guys think we will see Dorless anytime soon? My goodness, Kerry. At this point for me, I'm thinking it may be just a scheme of things, maybe not grasping the playbook, soon enough. It's got to be something because it's very puzzling to not see Dorless, someone who was a top pressure getter, in college, and then just like we can't get him on the field for even one snap. I feel like we've seen just about everybody for at least one snap, except for Brandon Dorless, who's still with the team. So,
he hadn't even been active this year. That's the crazy thing.
No,
he hadn't even been active. So,
and he's been healthy.
Man.
Trust me,
he's been inactive. The last time we've seen him was week 3 in the preseason versus Jacksonville. That's the last time we saw Brandon Dorless. The week before that, week 2 against Baltimore, him and Rook were wreaking havoc on the field. And what's his name? Brandon Dorless was on the field on that Rook sack early in the first quarter. So there's some head scratching things to do. Me personally, my take on Brandon Dorless, I thought that he was more pro ready than Rook was. Rook was still, you could see some things in Rook's game that allowed you to understand, okay, this is a kid that's still learning the game. He's very raw. While Brandon Dorless did a lot of the things that are needed in the professional level. They featured him being Oregon real good at the 3, the 5, and the 9 technique. So they used his versatility up and down the line. But I'm gonna bring up something. I'm I'm gonna shout out the Bleacher Report scouting department for giving us. God damn it, Antonio. He got me on this one yesterday. Oh man. So with Brandon Dorless, some of the things that Bleacher Report saw from him, their scouting department, was not very physical at the point of attack, subpar pad level, which impacts his ability to take on double teams and down blocks. The block recognition as a run defender is late. Has instances where he's slow to react and doesn't put himself in good positions to stay in his gap. Are we seeing, or is the coaching staff still seeing those, still those things out of Brandon Dorless? It could very well be. So the question is, are we going to see Brandon Dorless this year? Are the Falcons going to just redshirt him and let him really iron out those kinks in his game and get him prime and ready for next year? That's what I think, man.
At this point, I think that's probably the best thing to do, because as we look at the trade deadline, we keep talking about making trades for edge rush and defensive tackles. If that's the case, if we make a move for either one of those positions, 9 times out of 10, he's probably not going to play this year. Especially like you said, if Bruque, who's a bit more raw and not as polished as him, and we saw what he can do by collapsing the pocket, he's farther along than we thought. But again, as I tell y'all, practice field don't always tell the exact talent of a person. They could probably perform better on the field. And if they don't feel like he's ready, there's not much we can do. But Carrie, thank you for that update. She says Drake London will have tests done, but the belief he suffered a hip pointer. Yeah, they said that during the game yesterday, actually. And they can be frustrating, true enough. But I think they may hold him out.
Strain too.
Right. They may hold him out for this game against the Saints, depending on how he's feeling during practice this week. But if he doesn't play Sunday, I won't be surprised, because actually I think he would need a week to rest that hip. So we'll see how it turns out. But our boy H.O. says we can also give a little to Zach for continuing to get better with his play calling and his weapons and using his weapons. H.O. I agree with that, H.O. Definitely, man, because he had problems getting everything in rhythm at first, but now him and Kirk Cousins look like they've been working more and more in the film room. So wide receiver is a position we don't have to worry about talking about a trade anymore. Everybody's in place. Everybody's getting in rhythm. And look, I'm thinking on the defensive line and edge rusher is the only two positions I would even think about trading to make a trade for, because even that linebacker, we brought in Rashawn Evans, who I expected to see yesterday. JD Bertrand has played pretty well as a rookie. So pass rush, defensive line. If we make that move, then I don't think Dorless sees the field this year.
Another thing about Dorless too, you got to remember Damone Harris has come in and played well as well. I know it hasn't been just like eye popping for some, but at the end of the day, he's still making tackles. He's still having tackles for loss, quarterback hits. So, I mean, gaining pressures and just, helping in that run game. So that's another thing for Dorless too. He has guys that are coming in and being productive along that defensive line. And it's just tough sledding for the young lad, man. It's just hopefully we see him. But again, I agree, fellas. If we make pass rush moves, especially if we get Ojulari and Calais, you can definitely say that Dorless is going to be buried at the bottom of the depth chart, because I
wouldn't be mad about that, because sometimes players need time to pan out. Every transition isn't easy. Every position is different when it comes to transitioning to the next level. We talk about quarterback, that's one of the toughest positions. Running back may be one of the easy positions because you just running the football. But defensive line, you have to be able to read what's going on the field, and you have to be able to react. And maybe he just hasn't got there yet. Who knows?
And Antonio has a great point here, because D'Angelo Malone. We were saying we've been looking for D'Angelo Malone for years. It feels like, I'll just say it, bro. And we seen that he got on the field yesterday. We also heard before this game that Jimmy Lake was saying he isn't doing enough in practice, doing enough to get himself on the field. Well, he got himself on the field, and just like Antonio said, man, the pass rush did get a little faster. Why? Because he's an athlete. He's one of the fastest guys on the team, and we've been wondering here on this platform, all three of us, where the hell is Malone? So
man,
we'll see more of Malone as well, which also probably will hinder Brandon Dorlus as well. So some guys in his way.
Facts. But our boy HO has a fact right here, right quick. Said, did you know the Falcons the only team in the NFL with two 500-yard receivers and a 500-yard running back? That's what I'm talking about. It's all about offense and moving the football. And they're only going to get stronger as the year go on because they're gelling. It's something that we said that they had to do. But again,
man, I'll tell you what though,
go ahead.
that's a good point. That's a good point that who mentioned that? HO?
HO, yeah.
HO. Shout out to you, HO. And you know what? The last time we saw a metric like that was in that 2016 season. Devontae Freeman, Julio Jones, and I think Mohamed Sanu almost clearing that 1,000-yard receiving year as well. So yeah, the Falcons have some great pieces to go along with. But folks, if Smitty, you good? Chris, you good? You guys have anything else you want to add on?
Just one thing, right quick. I would not be surprised if the Falcons made a trade, a low bearing trade to where they can just fit someone in the rotation on the defensive line. That's what I'm looking at. I think receiver is straight, cornerback is straight. Position that we've looked at, linebacker is a little fuzzy right now. But once they get healthy, I think they'll be fine with Rashaan Evans, who has been on this team before. 2 years ago, he's familiar with these players, so he knows how they play. So that won't be a problem. But I think defensive line is a trade that we could be looking at. And y'all know if they make a trade, I'm going to have y'all up on the news because that's what I do.
I'll give you one more name before we head out of here right quick, man. Another name is to look for is Michael Hoysett of the Los Angeles Rams. Michael Hoysett, seven sacks he had under Raheem Morris in 2023. 2022. Knows the system. He's a lower tier guy, like Smitty mentioned as well in that regard. But this is a guy that can be infused into the rotation. Not only is he a good rusher, but he's a good run stopper as well. So getting a complete end like that could, help this defense, leaps and bounds as well as we continue to trot out these wins, man, and definitely start, continue kicking ass in the whole entire NFC conference. But Chris, before you go, brother.
One thing about it, I got to add one more name. And I know he's not linked to us really like anymore. It's really like the Lions now. But Zadarius Smith, do you think the Falcons are not still working the phones to try to see about acquiring Zadarius Smith? I know we kind of all on the Ojulari train now. But Zadarius Smith is also a guy who can win one-on-ones, get to the quarterback, disrupt that offensive line, also play the flats. So it's just like it's another player. He can do all those things, so he's not going to come cheap, I assume. But do you think the Falcons are all out on Zadarius Smith and maybe just all in on Ojulari now?
Never say never. Never say never, right? Right now, yes, like you mentioned, he's exclusively being linked to the Lions, and can you blame them? Losing Aiden Hutchinson is a big task, a big shoes to fill. But Zadarius Smith, 31 years of age, still has a lot left in the tank. I think he has like 4 or 5 sacks for the Browns right now. The contract is affordable on his behalf. I think he's only due. We signed 2 years, $12 million. So that's not out of the question for Zadarius Smith. He's a complete end, like you mentioned. So yeah, it's not out of the question. You never know, man. You never know what we could do. The Browns are said to be looking for a day 3 pick. I mean, we have a couple day 3 picks next year, but we also have 2026's pool that we can tap into as well, as Smitty alluded to a little bit earlier, with giving up some of those future picks to acquire talent now. So it's not out of the question, really, man.
Yeah, agreed. But like I said, man, I think Azeez Ojulari, financially wise, age at 24, I think that is probably going to be the move because, as we know, Terry is cap conscious at this point after pulling us out of cap hell, and I don't see him willing to go back there right now. Maybe once Grady and Matthews is off the book, but right now, I think he'll go young, cheap, cost effective, and I think that's the route we take at the trade deadline. We have a little bit over 24 hours left, so y'all just stay tuned because if we make a move, like I said, we're gonna be ready to give y'all that information. Maybe tonight, who knows? But we'll see how it plays out.
Yes, sir. Chris, Smitty, you guys good?
Yeah, we good,
man. Hey, man, I'm good.
Chris, let the folks know where they can find you.
Hey, man, A1 Forever Sports, that's the platform on YouTube. Man, if I had a theme music right now, it definitely would be what my man Fred Hammond, "Glory to Glory to Glory," because just crossed the 3K subscribers mark, so it's A1 3K now. Really appreciate all the new supporters that's come through, and and all my day ones. Appreciate every last one of you guys as we're continuing to grow this platform and continuing to give you some of the best content that we possibly can, all collectively and individually. Of course, with Twitter and Instagram, A1 Forever, and on TikTok, the real A1 Forever. Just come on by, man, have a conversation, man. Shout out to each and every last one of you fellas on this platform. My bros, shout out to Bro Talk. And of course, RJ, the plug Walt.
Yes, sir.
No doubt, no
Yes,
doubt,
sir.
man. Y'all know where to find me, man. Smitty Sports Machine, man, on YouTube. And also find me on Twitter at FatBoySlim_21. Y'all see it up on the screen, man. We always on Twitter starting fights because that's what we do. But shout out to the chat, man, for coming through at this midday special. We definitely appreciate y'all. Make sure y'all catch me tomorrow on the NFC South Roundtable.
Hell yeah.
7 p.m. If y'all
There'll be a lot of napkins, Bring a boatload of napkins
up,
to TJ.
Baby.
Hey, look, the Saints fired their coach yesterday, so we might have a party tomorrow.
Firing Dennis Allen. Hell,
and they will fire in the week that he play us. Ain't that some shit?
Bro, I'm just saying, like Dennis was building something.
Yeah,
the man didn't have enough time.
Man, he was building something special. I don't even know what he was trying to do.
He was building a pile of shit, is what he was building.
Hey, one thing about it, man. Hey, sometimes you got to go up Shit's Creek. You know what I'm talking about?
Hey, I'm telling you. Sometimes you got to build that. Sometimes you got to build that pile of shit for it to tip over. But look,
man,
catch me tomorrow at the NFC South Roundtable, man. We're gonna have a blast, man. We always do. Wednesdays, we will be on at 8 this week, but I think the following week we're gonna start switching to 9 p.m. Because we will come into a new endeavor that has us for that time. So we're gonna have the Atlanta Falcons Roundtable coming at y'all maybe next week. And trust me, y'all want to stay tuned for that. We're gonna give y'all all the info and the download on that later this week when we get everything wrapped up. Cause man, we out here making moves behind the scenes. And look, we got something special coming for y'all, man. We just gonna try to grow bigger and better every show. And it's all due to our supporters and our followers.
Absolutely, man. Well, man, thank you guys for joining on this midday special. I'm your boy Berto, host of the 95 North Falcons talk show on YouTube. You can find me there. You can also find me on Bleacher Report, as I am the official Atlanta Falcons content creator. Make sure you go to Bleacher Report. I had an interesting take on Darnell Mooney, what he has meant to this Atlanta Falcons team thus far in this 2024 campaign. Appreciate if you guys can comment and run up the likes on that. But until then, man, we'll catch you Wednesday night with Bro Talk, previewing the New Orleans Stanks as our Week 10 matchup is fastly approaching. But until then, man, support Smitty on the NFC Roundtable, support the 95 North Falcons talk show, Chris Tip Forever, A1 Forever Sports, the Smitty Sports Machine, and we will see you guys on Wednesday, everybody. Peace.